When I first met Emma, she had that spark in her eyes. The kind that makes you think you've finally found the person who gets you. We met in college, bonded over late-night coffee runs and shared playlists, and within 2 years we were inseparable. Or at least that's what I thought. Fast forward 6 years, and I was standing in the middle of our apartment, holding an engagement ring that suddenly felt like a cruel joke. It started with small things. Missed calls, late replies, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. She'd brush it off every time I asked, "You're overthinking, Ryan. Not everything's a big deal." But it was a big deal. When the person you love starts pulling away, every silence feels heavier than words. One night, she came home late again. I cooked dinner, her favorite chicken Alfredo. It sat cold on the table, the candles burning low. When she finally walked in, she didn't even seem surprised. She just sighed, tossed her bag on the counter and said, "You didn't have to wait up." That's when I noticed the perfume, not hers. It was sharp, masculine, expensive. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "With coworkers," she said, shrugging. "We went out for drinks." "Why? You don't trust me now." That word, trust, it hit differently, because trust is what I'd given her, completely, foolishly. I let it go that night, but something in me had already cracked. A week later, my best friend Mark sent me a picture. It was Emma, sitting in a restaurant with a man I didn't know. They weren't doing anything technically wrong, but her hand rested over his and she was smiling, that smile she used to save just for me. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to see where the truth ended and her lies began. So I watched. I waited. She started working late more often. She stopped answering my calls during team dinners. She even started dressing differently, not bad different, just deliberate, like she was trying to impress someone. Then came the night everything fell apart. We were supposed to go to my parents' house for dinner, a plan we'd made weeks ago. She texted me an hour before, "Can't make it. Emergency meeting." But when I called her office, her coworker casually mentioned she'd left early. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going until I saw it. Her car parked outside a hotel. My hands trembled as I sat there, watching through the rain-streaked windshield. I told myself maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe I was just paranoid. Then she came out with him, the same man from the photo. Their hands brushed. He opened the door for her, and she laughed. That same soft laugh that used to be mine. Something inside me shattered quietly. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just drove home. When she walked in later that night, she acted normal, like nothing had happened. She smiled faintly, said, "Sorry, the meeting ran late." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't even recognize the woman standing in front of me. "Emma?" I said softly. "Are you even sure we're still a couple?" She froze for a second, then smirked, like it was a joke. "What's that supposed to mean?" I held up the ring, the one I'd spent months saving for, the one I was going to give her next week. She didn't even flinch. "You're being dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. "You always do this when you get insecure." That was it, the final nail. I tossed the ring onto the table. It hit the wood with a dull thud, heavier than it should have been. "No more," I said quietly. "I'm done." Her smirk faltered for the first time, but I didn't stay to see what came next. I walked out. The door clicked shut behind me, and with it, every illusion I'd ever held about us. The air outside felt colder than I expected. The city buzzed around me. Cars, laughter, life. But all I could hear was the echo of her smirk. That tiny, heartless expression that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't go home that night. I drove aimlessly until the streets blurred into empty highways. I ended up at Mark's place, my best friend, the same one who'd sent me that photo. He didn't ask questions. He just opened the door and handed me a beer. For hours, I sat in silence, staring at the ring box in my hand. It looked ridiculous now, a symbol of something that had already died long before I noticed. "You did the right thing, man," Mark finally said. "She made her choice." I nodded, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like failure, like I'd been fighting for something that never really existed. Over the next few days, Emma tried calling. Dozens of times. I didn't answer. When she showed up at my apartment, I almost didn't open the door. But curiosity, or maybe some leftover hope, made me turn the handle. She looked terrible. Messy hair, tired eyes, mascara smudged. For a moment, I saw the woman I used to love. "Ryan," she whispered, "can we talk?" "There's nothing left to say," I replied. "Yes, there is," she snapped, her voice trembling. "It wasn't what you think." I almost laughed. "Then explain it to me, Emma. Explain the hotel. Explain him." She stared at the floor. "It just happened. We were drunk. It didn't mean anything." The words hit harder than any confession could. Didn't mean anything. As if years of love and trust could be reduced to a moment that meant nothing. I shook my head. "You could have told me the truth. You could have respected me enough to say it's over. Instead, you lied. Over and over." Tears welled in her eyes, but I'd seen enough performances to know when one was real. This wasn't remorse. It was regret for getting caught. "Please," she whispered, reaching for my hand. "Can we just start over?" I stepped back. "Start over? With what, Emma?" "There's nothing left." That night she left again. This time for good. The following weeks were brutal. Nights felt endless, mornings were heavy. I'd wake up expecting her beside me, only to find an empty pillow. But somewhere between the silence and the pain, I started remembering who I was before her. I went back to the gym, started playing guitar again, reconnected with old friends I'd drifted away from because Emma didn't like them. Slowly, I began to breathe again. Then one day, I ran into her, months later, at a grocery store of all places. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but like the confidence she once wore had faded. "Ryan," she said softly, almost afraid. "Emma," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. We made small talk, awkward, pointless. Then she said, "I heard you got promoted. Congratulations." "Thanks," I said. "How's life?" She hesitated. "He left. A while ago." I nodded. "I'm sorry." She forced a weak smile. "You were always good at that. Caring even when you shouldn't." There was a long pause. For a second, I could feel the weight of everything unsaid between us. But I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. I'd finally reached a place beyond both. "Take care of yourself, Emma," I said, grabbing my bag. "Really?" She blinked rapidly, and I could tell she wanted to say something more, but the words never came. I walked away, and this time it didn't hurt. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I realized something simple but powerful. Closure isn't about getting answers. It's about accepting that some people break you just to teach you how strong you can be. Love isn't about holding on when it's falling apart. It's about knowing when to let go, even if your hands still remember how it felt to hold them. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Not because I'd won, not because I'd moved on, but because I finally understood what peace felt like.